Welcome to That Japanese Thing. Today on the show we'll be talking about Lupin, the Castle of Cagliostro. Additionally in the news, you can now smell anime, Tokyo pays kids to move away, there's a Pokemon card heist, anime delays, rumours, and Goblin Slayer returns. I'm your host Chris. Today with me are Dylan and Yash. Welcome guys.
Hi there.
How's everyone doing?
Well enough in
Okay.
yourself?
Well enough indeed. So, first up, we've got another movie to talk about, and a relatively old one. God, this is what, like 42 years old?
1979.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty old.
Okay. I didn't quite realize how long ago this movie was made, I guess. But yeah, Yesh suggested the Lupin movie, Lupin the Third, Castle of Cagliostro. Yeah, why did you suggest it, Yesh? What was...
When I was first getting into anime, as in had seen a couple of TV shows, randomly aired, became interested in anime, started to look for what to watch. Amongst the suggestions were obviously things like Evangelion and stuff. But Castle of Cagliostro was one of the few movies suggested to me. And at that point in time, I wasn't yet interested in anime to the point where I made it a part of my life, per se. So the idea of just picking up a movie, watching for an hour, and then being done appealed. I then watched Castle of Cagliostro back in like 1997. And it stole my heart away to a certain extent. I went on an adventure, had a grand time, and since then I've watched it 3 times more since that point in time. God, I rented it from a Blockbuster. And as such, it's kind of become part of the anime, the reasons I love anime kind of thing for me.
Right.
As such, I wanted to share it with everyone else. I will say that during watching it, I did feel like perhaps my tastes are a little bit different, or perhaps modern media is a little bit different. But we can get into that when we're talking about our impressions. The reason I suggested this is one of the things that cemented anime as one of my favorite media types, and that's why I brought it up.
It's kind of interesting. So it was made in 1979, but it didn't get a US adaptation / dubbing until the 90s. So 1992, and then it was actually released again in theaters in America at that time. It's kind of weird how little money like anime movies make, I guess, when compared to like other movies. They're definitely not like Disney animation kind of numbers we're talking about here. So this made in total worldwide $5 million. And it costs apparently 2.3 to make. So these things never actually make a lot of money, and it is very much like a kind of a cult following, I suppose, for these sort of things. I guess it's just made for the fans of the series, probably, right?
An appreciation of the art.
Appreciation of the art gives the animation studio another job, sort of thing, and something to sort of cash in on a bit, I guess, at the end of a project.
I will say, I think it's important to note that a lot of these, and I'm going to specify long-running anime series,
Sure.
because Lupin, Detective Conan, and a couple of others are all, like, they have a separate genre type of themselves, where each individual movie doesn't have to perform spectacularly, as long as the franchise is alive, and the sales of background merchandise is alive. They'll keep being made. So I do think that regardless of the exact figure that this movie made when it launched, the merchandising sales from Lupin merchandise continues to be significant.
Yeah,
Even today.
I was going to bring that up. I think a lot of the money in anime, at least before like the last 10 years, has been in like the merchandise, as you say, figurines, stationery, like body pillows in some cases, that sort of stuff, right? And I think a lot of it was just in the Japanese market as well, because that's where most of that stuff gets sold, and
Sold.
then other parts of Asia, and then a small amount of it finds its way to the rest of the world. But yeah, what is Lupin, Yash? How would you describe the series that this movie came from?
So specifically, the anime adaptation of it is that Lupin the Third is an adaptation of Lupin. Sorry about that. A popular French criminal who has their own TV show in the European side of things. Lupin is a popular European franchise and was adapted as Lupin the Third for the Japanese audiences in particular and made into an anime. Lupin the Third is a sort of a flamboyant 70s, 80s criminal who does spectacular heists. Part of his modus operandi is that he warns people before he goes in for the heist. This is not 100% truthful in the warning that he does, but basically he's there to create a show. A lot of his escapes are ridiculous and insane. But there's a certain level of grounding to most of it. There's some clearly insane stuff involved with the escape scenes and such, but the setup of the heist, the build up to the heist, and all of the characters involved are always pretty spectacularly done, so that when you get to the heist itself, the payoff of the heist always feels very satisfying.
Okay.
I would say that that's roughly what Lupin the Third is. He, in fact, in the universe, suggests that he's related to the French Lupin. So I wonder if they talked to the person who wrote the original Lupin to get permission for this.
So
That's interesting.
I understand that not the first or the second series, but the third series was a French-Japanese collaboration.
Yes.
So maybe there is some sort of crossover somewhere there.
They
between those two
probably
things?
will be. I do know that the French author of Lupin specifically worked with The Moonlight Thief, which is a completely separate, not related to this anime in particular,
Yeah.
Japanese animation about a criminal who performed a crime like Arsène Lupin, the original Lupin.
Yeah.
But I don't know for certain if that author worked with the animators of this movie. However, Lupin the Third is definitely the third in line after the original Lupin, which is a French creation. The
Yeah.
big advantage to this is actually that in many of the Lupin movies, they bring in a very European feel to a lot of the heist, which is a bit unusual for anime in this time period.
So the one, like anime localizations all have their own sort of countries where they're super popular in. Like Dragon Ball was very popular in America and Portugal for some reason. I think they had really good dubs, or interesting dubs at least. But Lupin became super popular in Italy to the point of mild obsession of the boys and girls growing up at that time. Every Italian person of a certain age you speak to will have watched Lupin, and will have probably not even really thought about it being Japanese at all, I guess. So yeah, it's one of those kind of things that almost works better. Very much like the Helsing dub.
Yes, exactly. It ended up becoming more spectacular than we expected.
Yeah.
The Helsing dub in particular got British actors to portray their voice.
I mean, not that the original Japanese was bad or anything, but yeah, I think having the British anime, with British actors, does really add something to it.
In Lupin the Third, Castle of Cagliostro, well, actually across all of this particular generation run, Lupin's car is a little Italian Mini Cooper, I
Mini
think.
Cooper, yeah. Gets real battered in this movie.
But that's part of his signature now as well. That little tiny car that gets battered and beaten.
I think there's a new Lupin movie coming out, or maybe out in theaters in Japan at the moment, and you can see there's a bunch of Lupin McDonald's adverts where he's driving to the drive-thru in his little Mini.
Little beaten up car, yeah.
But okay, so yeah, so it's a detective story, isn't it? Well, not what's a thief story?
It's a heist movie, yeah.
Yeah. Is Lupin a detective, or is he just a thief?
He's just a thief.
Okay.
In particular, though, I will say that a recurring character amongst these movies, there is a detective, Inspector Zenigata, who is a Japanese officer that works with Interpol, and thus he travels wherever Lupin travels to go and capture him, regardless of location.
Right. So that's the Japanese connection throughout the story, I guess.
Specifically, the Japanese police lead it, yes.
As well, there were two other Japanese characters in the movie. There was the blonde lady. I can't remember.
Fujiko. So Fujiko is a recurring character as well, yes, that's true.
And then
Fujiko lives in America now. She's a spy who was born Japanese and lives in the United States. Then we have Goemon.
Yeah.
So Goemon is a son of a what do they call them? Dojo? Maybe
Sure.
dojo? I forget. He basically got helped by Lupin in the past, and he now appears in all these movies as like almost a joke about samurai.
Right.
He's the most samurai to ever samurai. And,
But he's helping the thief to steal things, essentially.
But he's helping a thief to steal things. And it is a common running theme / joke that he always tries to be honorable, always tries to help good people. But also, if he ever has to actually draw his sword, he always talks about how embarrassed he is that his blade has to see this nonsense before performing literally magic.
What do you mean by literally magic?
So, what it is portrayed as on screen is you see white lines go across the screen. You never see him draw his blade, like actually pull it out.
Okay.
Whenever he says he's going to do something, white lines fill the screen for a moment, and then like just everything on the screen has been cut. And like he does that sometimes standing on the wings of a plane, standing on the back of Lupin's car. Doesn't matter. He just stands up. You hear a sound effect, and then everything has been cut.
So he's got that sort of classic, samurai can kind of do anything with his katana vibe about him, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And you don't see the blade come out. You hear the sound effects, and then you see him putting the blade back in. You didn't actually see it come out. But as he puts it back in, everything that's been cut just falls apart. A continuous joke about how crazy the samurai mythos has
And then
become.
is Jigen, he's sort of the accomplice, right?
Jigen is sort of an untyped. He's sort of Japanese, but also like there's a very strong suggestion that he's like every form of Eastern European in existence.
Well, I mean, his name is super Japanese, right? Daisuke Jigen.
Daisuke Jigen.
Yeah.
But he's definitely got. Firstly, he's got a darker complexion. Secondly, he's got like crazy facial hair.
He does look a little bit more like European than Japanese, I would say.
He's supposed to look a little bit scummy.
Yeah, for sure.
And Jigen is the constant companion of Lupin, where the other two characters that we talked about appear on occasion or like almost cameo. Jigen and Lupin are the main thieves in the story of basically every story. And also their friendship is sort of legendary. In fact, in this particular movie, there's a scene where Lupin recognizes what's happening, but Jigen doesn't know yet.
Right.
And in order to get that information out of Lupin, he doesn't ask Lupin a damn thing. Instead, he sits next to Lupin and just waits for the pressure of like Lupin waiting for him to ask questions to get over Lupin. And then they have like a mini fist fight with each other, but they're not hurting each other. And Lupin goes, "Fine, I'll tell you," without Jigen ever asking anything.
So Jigen's thing is guns, right?
Mm-hmm. So Jigen in particular is the gunman, but he also kind of specializes in setting up heist mechanics using guns. So like sometimes he'll snipe a switch on a train to make it go on a different track or something. Whatever he does, his role in the heist is shoot gun usually.
Okay, so Lupin steals things, Jigen shoots things, Fujiko blows them up, right? Goemon uses his katana.
Well, Fujiko tends towards infiltrating. She's a super spy. She's in disguises. She learns secrets inside the organization.
She seemed very fond of grenades in this movie, though.
Indeed. Well,
And
she's hyper American because she was a Japanese citizen that became an American spy.
Okay.
So her role in future movies, if we continue on watching some Lupin movies,
So she's like a double agent.
Yeah, exactly. Literally that. She has her own purpose. She betrays Lupin when she can, but she never causes him harm. She doesn't want him hurt. She
Okay.
just wants gold and information.
Have you seen any of the new Lupin stuff?
I've watched the new TV series for 4 episodes. I will say I'm not planning on finishing it at the moment unless we decide to make it a thing.
No, well, I don't know. I watched a spin-off for Lupin. It's about someone opening a diner in like Tokyo, but he's one of like the side characters. But I'm not really sure like how it's related to everything. Just every now and then, like one of the characters from the show will show up. So that's my kind of only attachment to it, and having heard people like talk about it over the years, I guess.
That's very much a spin-off type of thing, but it's
Yeah.
meant to... See, this is the thing I wanted to talk about in particular when we're talking about Lupin, though. More than most anime, I feel currently at least, the Lupin series are character-driven shows. I don't know if you guys felt it, but this movie feels like it drags a lot in the in-between action segments. And that's specifically because they're trying to introduce us to these characters and get us to like them before we move forward. And in particular, the relationship between Lupin and Lady Clarice, which is the red-headed girl that's the princess
All right.
of this nation,
The plot point. Yeah.
has a lot of room to be interpreted very badly, very uncomfortably. Because Lupin is presented as like a 38-year-old, still kind of adventurous guy, still very flirty, but like he's presented as an older man in this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Lady Clarice is literally presented as a child. She is definitely over 18,
Well, I
getting
don't
married
know.
and all
Like you
that.
can get married in Italy if you're 16, so that's the age I
Perhaps
assume
she
she
is
was.
over 16, but she is presented as like real young, like very young. So there's a lot of room to feel uncomfortable or icky as they interact because Lupin is like just a crazy flirt for the most part. But if you watch the movie and they spend quite a bit of time on their interactions, you'll see he never hits on her. He never actually like does something like that. It can come across as like him being a bit show-offy, but the primary purpose of him showing off is to get her to trust him over her fear.
Yeah, it's not as creepy as some other anime stuff
Precisely.
can be. Yeah.
And also the relationship between Jigen and Lupin is like dragged in some scenes. But you can feel that the reason why things progress is because they trust each other uncompromisingly. There's a couple of scenes where it looks like they're going to betray each other and begin punching each other, and then they suddenly just twist into running away from the bad guys and stuff. And it's obvious that they've done this hundreds of times. They trust each other absolutely. And I will say that this movie does a fantastic job of showing us relationships without telling us why. Which is the specific strength, I feel, of Castle of Cagliostro.
Did you feel it dragged, Dylan?
Yeah, so I've watched the movie twice now. This was the second time that I've seen it. Abs introduced it to me the first time.
Okay.
Both times it did feel very long. So I don't know if I would word it as dragging, but it felt very long. And I think maybe what adds to this perception of it dragging on is that there's a lot of cyclical element in this particular movie. You know, how many times do they infiltrate the castle? It's not just once, like what a standard heist movie would be. They infiltrate and get caught, I think, at least several times.
At least 3, perhaps
at least-
even 4.
At least 3 or 4 times, and that kind of makes it feel like especially when you're not kind of keep paying attention throughout the whole film at every moment, you kind of lose place and you're like, wasn't there a moment when we were outside again? I don't understand why we're back in here. But
Yeah.
you know, if you're just piggybacking on what Yesh said, it's really obvious that this to me is a type of movie where there is heritage and lineage, or rather legacy, in the characters that come in. And like one of the things that I noticed quite clearly was when they introduced a character that was supposed to be a known character for the audience. In other words, you've seen previous Lupin movies or animations. And then you would go, oh, this is Fujiko or Goemon's, entrance into this movie. I wonder who else they're gonna
Bring in.
introduce as it goes on. So it's quite clear that those moments of going in and out of the castle kind of kept reintroducing new cast, or rather, sort of repeating cast members. And that I feel like if you don't have that behind you, it can make it feel like it's dragging on. If you do have that behind you, I can imagine now you sit and go, oh yeah, Goman has entered the fray. Or finally Zenigata has come, makes an appearance.
It's kind of strange because I didn't have any of that. I kind of
Really?
just went along for the ride, I guess. I didn't really mind them getting caught and escaping, getting caught and escaping, all that sort of stuff. I thought it was maybe the fight scene at the end was a bit long, but some people like that sort of stuff. It's kind of like the end of the Avengers or whatever. You get your giant fight scene and things go a bit crazy, but that's fine, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
What I liked about it was, except for Goemon, everyone had like a pretty decent personality type.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not the heroine. Like she was really just kind of a plot point, kind of a fragile kind of person to be rescued, I guess. But like the villain was like very villainous. He had like a legion of like good old boys from the south dressed up in their white hoods and everything to back him up throughout his crimes.
That, or like that sort of weird rich people occultic vibe that you sometimes get that's kind of creepy.
Particularly the butler was super duper creepy in the role. Yet very devoted to his evil lord. Wanted Goemon to cut him down in the end when they had lost. Goemon doesn't say much or do much. I imagine he's better in the anime proper, I guess.
With development, Goemon's character becomes more apparent. He is very much a silent character that doesn't develop in this particular movie.
I really liked Jigen throughout, because he's just like this grumpy, putting up with Lupin's
shit.
Yeah, the whole time. But yeah, no, he's fun. I like how he's always basically like preparing to shoot something in any scene he's in. He's like cleaning a gun or checking out, scoping out the things, or abusing cigarettes in some way. Every cigarette he has somehow gets crumpled before he smokes it. Yeah, I thought every character was pretty good. Not sure about. I mean, the plot sort of made sense, right?
Plot made a degree of sense. I will say that there's a certain degree of Japanese views on Europe in this movie, where the castle and the bad guys and the like 600-year-old corpses and everything.
It's got that Ghibli feel about European sort of stuff, doesn't it? Especially when
there's kind of like occultic horror just behind a thin veneer.
Like the Gothic Pope kind of thing going on there, where like there's only like one road to the thing and it's clogged with traffic, so that's how they get the Pope. It's this weird fantasy world where no one has like proper bodyguards and things, I guess. Maybe the 80s was just like that. Who knows?
I think the 80s was just like that.
Yeah, I guess no one checked if you had guns before you got on an aircraft back in the 80s. So maybe it was just like that. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it quite thoroughly, really. It wasn't like a 9 out of 10 or anything. But for a movie made in the 80s, it aged pretty well. 70s.
Yeah.
This is a 70s movie, technically.
I feel like it has a lot of soul.
Yeah.
It's definitely like you can tell that there's a lot of soul there. It might not conform to contemporary palettes for entertainment, but that's also okay.
That's exactly why I said during the introduction, I feel perhaps my taste has changed slightly. Because previously, when I watched this, I never had a problem with how the cycles of going in and out mattered. But for some reason, this time when I watched it, I felt like, are we breaking into the castle for a third time now, gents?
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, again, it's not necessarily a bad thing so long as you kind of there's a bit of awareness of that whilst watching.
Absolutely. And they do use each cycle to do something important, actually. Chris had mentioned that the Count made a particularly good villain. I want to point out that despite what we watch traditionally on TV nowadays, where if the bad guy is a bad guy, either he's a mustache twirling monstrosity, or he's a thinly veiled bad guy who has like a smile on his face and pretends to be nice, but as soon as you get past it, he's immediately a mustache twirling bad guy. This guy goes from like pompous rich guy to like slightly threatening pompous rich guy to like I have villains who are my minions, but I myself am clean to I'm going to shoot you, your children, and your dog.
He also has one of the funniest deaths of a
He
villain
does
I've ever
have a
seen.
particularly amusing death and sound effects for it.
You just skip like a minute ahead if you don't want to hear about it. But they're fighting on like a clock tower, and he puts a key in to it to activate the mechanism, and he just squishes himself between the hour and the minute hand.
The hour and the minute hand. And we've seen at least 3 people survive falling from this exact same clock tower.
Yeah.
So if he had just jumped or something, he could have been a fine
Or
maybe.
just like, not moved from where he was. He actually moves into the path of the two hands for some reason. I guess to make the scene work or whatever. But it's ridiculous. It's a weird ending to that. I guess they don't want to show Lupin being the guy that kills someone, maybe?
Oh no, he killed lots of people. I think this movie is an exception where we only see him attack guys in armor, so we don't see him directly kill
Like the
too many
robot
people.
ninja people, yeah.
The robot ninja people. But even when he's doing the swim around, sorry, there's a bit where he's swimming away from ninjas underwater. He does like flat kill a couple of people at least, but they are nameless mooks, admittedly.
Yeah, I mean, it may have been. I can see it equally being either at the time someone saying, "Oh, maybe we should be conform to a more gentle standard," or maybe in the script they're like, the Count very much needs to be the kind of villain that sort of does himself in, and this symbolism of his time has come might be appropriate for that. Sort of trapped in this great machination of a tower that he's trying to unlock the treasure of, and
Yes, yeah.
and that tower itself is ridiculously complicated. It's like it's very much absurdly
All the pipes and all the
complicated.
gears,
All the
yeah.
pipes and gears in the world.
Kind of an infernal machine kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, and of course that would eat you as the lowly individual trying to harness its power. It's got like it has got very occultic themes to it. It almost feels like I'm not saying that it is in any way, but it feels almost supernaturally like malevolent, that place.
Well, I mean, at a certain point, there's a kind of almost mind control happening as well. And then the bride walks out of a room with sort of literally the symbol of the devil above it.
Yeah, there's a lot of gothic and religious iconography that makes it feel sinister.
Well, I mean, with all that said, like, I'm probably gonna go and do a little search on Netflix and see if the latest series of Lupin's still available. Maybe give some of that a watch.
I do own a copy of The Grave of Jigen, which is the 90s run or the early 2000s run, one of the two,
Right.
of Lupin. So it's 2 seasons ahead of what the movie we watched currently was. So I was going to suggest that for my next suggestion whenever we do that.
I just note that the first arc of the new series is called Lupin versus Holmes.
Oh dear.
That could be
I
fun.
do think that the descendant of Holmes does make an appearance in Lupin, so it's possibly Lupin versus the descendant of Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, yeah. Holmes the Third, right?
Entirely possible.
We'll have to see. It just says Sherlock Holmes in the information though. So
Doesn't say Sherlock.
Sherlock Holmes, yeah.
That's unexpected.
I think we should watch it.
I think we should watch it.
Maybe we'll give that a go. But okay, I think that besides the rating, that'll finish off there.
The discussion of the
I'd give it
movie.
a good. Given its time period, I give it a 7 out of 10. Maybe to a modern audience, it's a bit lower than that. What do you think, guys?
I'm a 7.5 on this one. I will say I find it enjoyable. I find it well worth time. And there's a lot of quality there.
Probably if you had it on a VHS when you were a kid, it would have been quite heavily watched.
Yeah, I think it's a classic movie. You know, if you want to do movie education of different things, I don't think you should skip this one out. Do it.
Well, that'll do that for our main topic. And now on to some news. So, as teased, a company has made a product called the Aroma Shooter, which digitizes smells to enhance a user's anime watching experience. As of the recording of this, it has a number of disturbing features that it's compatible with. One being Rugrats, one being the Wild Thornberries, but in Japanese animation, there is quintessential quintuplets. So if you want to smell those girls, I guess that's your opportunity. But worse than that is Cyberpunk Edgerunners. The makers of this have said that they're working on bringing cyber psychosis smells to your nose. So yeah, if you ever wanted to know what cyberpunk smells like, this is the device for you.
I feel like Cyberpunk would be honest and say, no, you don't. That's the whole point, is that it's low life. No.
It's just, I imagine everything in cyberpunk just smells like a garbage fire.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Right.
meant to. It's meant to. Oh, and in fact, it's meant to the extent that you pay someone to
Get rid of your sense of smell, probably. Eh?
or put in like filters that will filter everything out, leaving only like a nice gentle sea breeze,
Yeah.
whatever scent going in. I look forward to sort of complementary. I don't know.
So
Like
of course,
developments in complementary sense technology, but not this one.
I think in light of what you were saying, the vain Elon Musk. That's maybe where I was going with that. But Musk has put in that rather than get a device that makes the smells that you might want to smell, he can just put a chip in your head that'll allow you to smell your anime.
Mm-hmm.
So he's promoting the Neuralink chip thing again, I guess, as a
But
way.
he needs to do a whole lot of promotion real quick.
Boy, does he!
I mean, that doesn't like he's going to be advertising full time for a long time.
It's such a lovely train wreck that everyone could see happening. That's going on there at the moment, but that's not the topic we're talking about right now.
No.
But I mean, I kind of do like the idea of maybe making your senses more in tune with, like, I don't know, something so you can appreciate something better. That seems like a cool idea for like an implant chip, right?
Especially for cooking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe you don't like how tomato tastes or something, and you could just fix that. That would be a cool use of that sort of thing. And I guess if you wanted to smell
Ooh,
TV shows and shit, like you can do that as well.
altering things. I'm not sure if I'm like that's where the interest lies in me in being able to like change the perception of something specifically, but just adding to enhancement of
Yeah.
experiencing like a movie, like if you can sort of instill the same sensation as a tremor if you're watching a movie with an earthquake,
Okay.
kind of do a lot, right?
I could go wrong so quickly. I feel like.
Well, I mean, I feel like all of this could go
Oh,
wrong,
for sure, yeah.
and there
Anything-
are so many different use cases and maybe anti cases that we can think of. But yeah, that's it from.
But
my
some
opinion on
some people would benefit from for example, having water taste like Coke, right? And such things. There could be a lot of positive things with that sort of device. This is not that. This is just if you want to smell fictional characters.
Yeah. That's
smelly fictional characters like the Rugrats.
Perfection.
Boy, don't I understand the things they've chosen to adapt. Anyway, moving on. This is the best headline I've ever seen, or ever heard, from the Asahi Shimbun. Japanese minister calls for new world order. It continues to counter the rise of authoritarian regimes. So, Japanese ministers have called for new world orders in the past. Twice from what I recall. And both times have been sad times for Korea. But, we'll see how it goes this time, I guess.
Oh dear.
So I think this is Nishimura. He is a Japanese minister of the economy, trade, and industry. We're speaking to the G7 about. I mean, it's nothing. It's nothing like what the title suggests. He's just concerned, obviously, about Russia and China and the cooperation between Beijing and Moscow. And they're trying to work more closely with the United States and various other, what do they say, like-minded nations in the region to prevent. I don't know what they want to prevent. I suppose the invasion of Taiwan is basically what everyone's concerned with at the moment, right?
Well, North Korea recently launched a ballistic missile at Japan.
Yes,
so
they did that as
They
well.
might also be interested in suggesting people stop doing that.
That is probably something that does need to stop.
That'd probably be a good idea.
I don't know what they can do about it at this point. I feel like if anyone had any intention of doing something about it, they should have done it before, the nukes were in the bunkers, so to speak. But, yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's a tough line.
Anyway, moving on. We've got some anime news. We have a sad delay from the Witch from Mercury Anime. Everyone's got COVID, so it's being delayed a little bit. There have been some delays in the past, and they chose not to air it over December because people would be away, and then there's Japanese New Year, and people were away for Christmas and such. So streaming was supposed to resume, I believe, on the 1st or the 2nd of January. It hasn't. Now everyone's sick, so it's being pushed back another couple of weeks or so. So sad, but I mean, it's been pretty great, and we can wait a week or two for a Gundam show.
As long as it doesn't end up like Uncle in another universe.
Does that have English subs yet?
It does, technically. They released 3 episodes with subs.
I must
But
say,
they're still not caught up.
are they not? But yeah.
No, they're 1 episode behind.
Okay. It's pretty good, though. I mean, at least it didn't drop in quality or anything like that.
Absolutely.
I think they got a new director in.
Yeah,
probably
I mean,
a
I
good move.
binged the rest of it in one go.
Yeah. Goblin Slayer Season 2 is premiering later this year.
I'm excited for this.
There's a new trailer on YouTube from GA. It looks good. I think the opening tagline is, "I'm not interested in saving the world, only killing goblins."
That's funny.
Did you watch the movie?
No.
There was a Goblin Slayer movie, I think 2019
Find it.
or 2020. Could be 2020. It's I continue to enjoy it. The movie was the movie was so much darker than the series, and the series was pretty dark to begin with. But having read the manga, it's got a lot further than it can go, I guess.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, I really enjoy the premise. I love the way he like thinks about things. You know, from the fact that he could get better armor, but he only wants armor that's good enough to kill goblins in, right? And he only needs weapons that are good enough to kill goblins with, and so on and so forth. And yeah, it's interesting. It's a perfect character you'd want to play in a D&D game, and I think that's why we all like him. Anyway,
I will say that he's not a power fantasy character.
not at all. No.
He gets beaten up a lot, and the methods he used to defeat goblins is actually interesting.
Yeah, I mean, they're cowardly methods. He doesn't care, right? I mean, he has trauma, and it was caused by goblins, and he's gonna do all he can to prevent other people going through the same fate, right? So he'll flood their nests and burn their villages and so on and so forth. It's got a really weird take on genocide that you don't see in fantasy anymore. It kind of came out of that 1990s Drizzt novel kind of thing, where
It's very familiar, yeah.
where you had the whole like dwarves saying, you know, like strangle the goblins in their cribs, right? That's the kind of world that this person lives in, not the new 5e kind of everyone is just the same, just with like, you know, a +2 hero there, right? But yeah, very interesting series overall. And then some rumors, which may be true or maybe not true. One Punch Man 3 was confirmed for a week, but apparently that was just a clone Twitter account that was using the same name. So the actual One Punch Man account says information will be announced from this account and only this account when it is time. They didn't deny it was happening, per se, right? But they did say that information wasn't meant to come out, at least. But it seems like we'll get it. I don't know where they're going, having finally watched One Punch Man Season 2 in its entirety. But yeah, I'd be down to watch another one. Not sure what. Maybe they want to make it like a mirror kind of against Mob Season 3, you know?
Oh, certainly not. No.
No,
one,
you know, just
one prefers Mob to.
Well, I'm sure. I'm just saying, you know, there was 3 seasons of Mob. They want 3 seasons of One Punch Man. You know what I mean?
Perhaps.
Yeah.
I think it's
right
because
off the hype.
merchandising is still going very strong for it.
Yeah, I mean, One Punch Man has that power fantasy kind of thing. If you look at it very superficially, right? The more you think about it, the less it feels at all like that.
But there are a lot of characters that are very unique that people might want little figurines for.
Indeed. All right, Yesh, what do you have?
I have urban bears, being a subset of bears that feel comfortable going into towns, have started to take over depopulated municipalities in Japan. It occurs, the occurrence of bears entering into municipalities has more than quadrupled due to a certain lack of population in a number of areas. And it's becoming more and more important that companies do sweeps of these depopulated metropolitan areas to ensure that there are no bears in houses. I found that story particularly surprising, as it appears... Where's the number? Give me 1 second. 137 bears were found inside a municipality at one point.
I just love the idea that they're all just living their lives, paying their taxes.
Humans move in next door. This neighborhood's really going downhill.
That's just a community at that point. And secondarily, a story that's kind of tangentially related to that, actually, is that the Japanese government is planning on increasing the Child Rearing Families Fund to to provide 1 million yen or 7,500 USD dollars per child for the raising and rearing of said children if they are raised outside of Tokyo.
Do they get that to bear children as well, or is that just
So
human
every
children?
child born, regardless of if it's in Tokyo or out, receives 500,000 yen as a one-time bonus support for having born a child,
Right,
the
right.
expense of raising it, etc., etc.
Bear or
But
not bear?
to
Bear
bear
or
or not
not?
to bear.
Yeah.
But inside Tokyo, and regardless of where you are, if you don't apply for this fund, all children are expected to be receiving, what was the number? 7,000 yen a
You said
month?
that's per year, right? I mean, that's pretty decent.
That is pretty
Yeah.
decent. So there's a fund that's going to be going through next year, although it obviously might get not approved or things could change. But they're talking about increasing child support regardless of where the child is being raised to 7,000 yen a month, which is maybe not
Not
incredible,
much,
but
but
it's okay. It's support. It's additional support, you know?
yeah, like
So you get 500,
$70 will. Well, it's not going very far, but I
not
mean, I guess
not
you know.
going very far, but $70 per child per month is still better than zero.
I mean, it's paying for like school lunches, I guess, at least or
Mm.
whatever. Yeah.
But there's then saying instead of that, if you raise your child outside of Tokyo itself,
You get
they'll
the
receive
$700 a year, so 7,000
7,500 per year,
Okay,
7,500 USD, yeah, per
yeah.
year.
I think that really is the problem in places which are seeing like declines in the amount of children a family is willing to raise.
Hmm.
It's not feasible to raise more than one
Continue
child at the
raising a
moment
child. Mm.
because of financial
Um,
constraints.
Sorry, I realized I didn't say the purpose of this bill. The
Yeah.
purpose is to reinvigorate some of these rural areas because what's happening a bit too commonly is people will raise their children from like toddlerhood up a little bit, and then the child will immediately go to
Go to
Tokyo
Tokyo.
to go to
Yeah.
high school, get a job, live their career in Tokyo. And this
But
is leading
yeah,
to a lot of rural areas not only losing some pop, but literally the entire community dies and depopulates, and then apparently becomes filled with bears.
I think
Mhm.
maybe Kumamoto will benefit from some
Kumamoto,
of these
it
things.
will suffer from this greatly unless it gets repopulated. Yes,
Right.
Yeah,
good old
this is
Kumamoto.
this is definitely a way, like a indirect way to fight against the rise of the bear population.
It's
Hmm.
the boars we need to worry about. The bears are on our side, guys.
I think we must just give them voting rights, and we'll see some progress in the next couple of decades.
Yeah. I do love how the Japanese have this sort of like weird faith in bear bells when they're hiking in the wild, where
It's
you'll
like
just
a dinner bell.
you'll just wear a dinner bell basically on your like a cowbell already, like on the back of your backpack as you're walking, and you'll go ding 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 ding.
Well, there is a study that says that many attacks, not all, but many attacks occur because you surprise the animal and it enters into
Mm.
fight or flight.
Sure.
So just giving an animal the opportunity to decide to avoid you oftentimes will prevent you
My
That's
my,
very
my
from
true.
concern is when
having
you go to Kumamichi and there's what do you say 137 bears living in the town.
137 bears in rundown
I'm not
houses.
sure how much the bells do to help you. Oh dear. But there was also a Tokyo Lens episode where you went to a village which literally only had one man living left in it.
Hmm.
And yeah, there were a bunch of bears occupying the rest of the structures and such. This is just
And they,
kind of a stubborn guy. It was so out of the way. They had to, once a year, they had to arrange for like a boat to ferry him across a lake. And then, he's too old to get his groceries, himself. So someone has to hike there and get him food and such. But I can't imagine this bill actually reinvigorating those sort of places, to be honest.
think a series of small balls working together will make something happen if they keep it up.
I
Probably,
feel like
probably towns that are just technically not Tokyo will benefit the
yeah,
most to this. You know,
Hmm.
yeah. I mean, if they if they do a couple of other things that might help, like if they make sure that those older towns have got modern infrastructure for telecommunication, right?
and
So
like
you've got
roads going to the.
and can ensure that power is
Yeah,
going to be good, and that there aren't going to be too many natural disasters without support or aid. And on top of that,
yeah,
you know, sort of incentivize companies to be more lenient about working from home.
sure.
You know, but
So,
like incentivization in this context is a bit difficult because it's got to be a social,
mhm.
sort of
Well,
socially acceptable way of doing it. Yeah.
with regards to what you were saying, there are two of the news stories that I had talked about previously. Apologies, listeners. I'm not asking you to go back and listen to stuff, but specifically the TSMC plant that is being opened north of Tokyo, but not inside Tokyo. It's quite far out.
In Kumamoto,
And
actually. Yeah.
the new JAXA space launch site, which is near Kumamoto, which is why I remembered Kumamoto at all. Both of these are projects that are meant to reinvigorate and create population centers outside of Tokyo. And they are redoing the roads and the electricity and data lines for those places so that they can become big
Mm,
economic centers of their own. So I do feel like, yes, this particular bill doesn't like make people want to stay outside of Tokyo very much. But by creating jobs, creating infrastructure, and creating a reason to be outside of Tokyo, and then incentivizing children being raised outside of Tokyo, you're going to end up with a spread of population a bit more.
mm.
And also, perhaps because I'm so cynical, it's nice to see a government do something that seems almost functional.
I mean, yeah, I would way prefer to live outside Tokyo than in it if I had to choose. That would definitely
Mhm.
be a preference. And if that was incentivized in a number of different ways, that would become a reality. Yeah.
I think with Japan, when something becomes an existential threat, they do tend to rally a bit, and do deal with the problem. I mean, we sort of we have seen this a few times in history. It
Mm.
doesn't always go well, but yeah, they certainly do things at least. I wonder. I mean, something like this probably should have happened 15 years ago for it to have a real effect. People are calling like the current situation in Japan the three lost decades, and it kind of just sort of feels a little bit like that. Like Japan could have been very much a almost competitor to America if policy had just been more rational during the last 30 years, right?
Mhm.
I mean, allow enough immigration, have a more kind of progressive like tax policy and so on and so forth. Make companies put up their prices for their products so that they can be more profitable and so on and so forth. But yeah, this feels good, but I don't know. I think basically it's just gonna make like places like Gunma adjacent to Tokyo more desirable for people who are, probably already working from home in Tokyo and considering having children.
Mm.
Frankly, like people we know, might be considering moving out for just those sort of reasons, and having a child maybe.
Mm.
But yeah, definitely a good thing. No two ways of looking about that, I guess. All right. Anything else?
No, that's me done.
Cool. What was the Pokemon card heist? Did we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there've been a series of burglaries in November and December in Akiba, and they've stolen a lot of cards and a lot of value of cards. And to my knowledge, uh, a lot of like the part there's no sort of word on whether or not there've been any arrests or whether or not there is any promising leads in the investigations.
So
But yeah,
no, go on.
I was going to say, for example, in one store in Machida, 60 cards were stolen, and that amounted to over 8.5 million yen's worth, and that was just one of the 5 stores that had been hit. They all get hit at night, broken into. So this is, a lot of heist activity going on. And if you think about it, at 8.5 million yen, you could easily put down money, travel to a different country with cards, and sort of set up some overnight infrastructure and sell them online.
Yeah, I mean, it depends what they stole. Because if they're valued like that in Japan, Japanese cards tend to go for a little bit higher price than their counterpoints. Because of the rarity and the text is like cool looking and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. And obviously like slightly smaller print runs. So yeah, if it's what $80,000 or so, and cards are pretty easy to get through a border,
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And you can still sell it back to Japan. You just don't want it to lead back to you when you inevitably go back there.
But no, I mean, I'd sell it in the States, really. You could probably double the price of each card doing it that way. Imagine if you got a Japanese print Black Lotus or something. That's almost retirement money.
I mean, the amounts of value in this might be maybe not quite retirement, but certainly,
house money.
Business is good. Business is good.
Right. Amusingly, for a short amount of time back in the 2010s, Bitcoin was based off a Japanese card exchange company in the region we're talking about, where you could purchase Magic the Gathering cards, not Pokemon cards, with Bitcoin, and then you could sell those to get your money, right? In yen or whatever.
It is still more solid by like orders of magnitude a financial way of working than what FTX does. Or did. So there was still something that you had. You owned a thing.
I think all the people associated with that business went to jail for a few years, so I'm not entirely sure how above board it was even then. But yeah, for sure, it's much better than the chimp economy, for instance. And on that note, that'll do it for our news stories today. Thanks everyone for listening again. I've been Chris.
Thank you. Dylan.
And Yesh as well. There we go. Ciao for now, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.